Hello, and welcome to another episode of Jayme's Journal, where I review urban fantasy books and series, and you get to hear about my journey to becoming a traditionally published author. I'm Jayme, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking more about outlining. So I discussed outlining a little while back, and I didn't go really deep into the whole process. So I actually got a question from one of my social media platforms asking me to go a little bit more in depth on outlining. So that's what this episode is going to cover. I do want to let you know that, again, outlining is a very personal choice and it doesn't work for everybody. Some people are very much in the pantser category, meaning they just sit down, they type, they totally fly by the seat of their pants, and they can get a finished novel, no problem. I, however, am not one of those people. So it took me a little while to kind of discover that I needed to be able to write an outline, to be able to figure out how my book was going to unfold before it actually happened. So you can Google how to outline a novel, and you're going to find so many different types of outlines for novels and novel writing because there are a lot of different genres. So I write urban fantasy, and that means that my genre is a little bit different. And I'm going to talk today about 3 of the different outlining methods that I know better. I don't really know a lot about outlining things like romance or cozy mysteries or even thrillers. So the ones that I typically go to are the hero's journey, take off your pants, the save the cat method, and the 3-act structure. I'm going to start with the 3-act structure because it really is the easiest structure that I've kind of come across when it comes to writing. So the 3-act structure is exactly what it says. It is laid out in 3 different acts that are separated into smaller chunks. So Act 1 is going to be all about your setup. It's going to be putting your reader in the everyday of your main character, letting them know what your main character's life is like before their journey even begins, letting them know why they're unhappy with their circumstances and the inciting event that's going to sort of kick off the entire novel to make your character decide to do something different. So that's Act 1. In Act 2, you've got Confrontation. And that's where you're going to see all of these small obstacles that are going to build and bring you to the climax of your story. So you might have your character maybe searching for whoever is murdering the werewolves, we'll say, in this city. So maybe they decide, I'm going to try and figure out if it's this person, and they investigate that person, but it turns out it's not them. So they've tried and they've failed. And that kicks them off into another series of events that will typically have them try and fail again. So they're going to go through that try-fail cycle a few times until finally they reach the climax of the story where they come face to face with who's actually responsible for what's happening. And that is where Act 2 usually ends. In Act 3, we get to see the resolution. We get to see the climax of Act 2 and now how everything resolves and wraps up until the end. And now you see your character in a whole new normal. So that's the 3-act structure. The other one that I use is the Save the Cat beat sheet. And there is a lot of terminology in writing that I wasn't aware of when I first started, like beats and scenes and sequel and just a whole lot of different terminology. So a beat in a story is the action that's going on within your story and how your story is going to unfold. So when you see something like the Save the Cat beat sheet, this is not necessarily laying out how many chapters you're going to have. It's really just laying out the main things that you see are going to happen within your story. And then you're going to take those and expand upon them and figure out where naturally your chapters are going to fall. So in the Save the Cat beat sheet, you have the opening image, which, just like the 3-act structure, is going to be setting your character up in their everyday life, letting them know what's wrong with the whole situation and giving an event that's going to kick it off and show why they're going to change. The thing about something like the Save the Cat beat sheet and the Take Off Your Pants structure and even the hero's journey is that those are going to be more in depth. So, for instance, in the Save the Cat beat sheet, you've got things like the opening image, the theme stated, and then you set up. You're going to have a catalyst, you're going to have a debate, a break into two, a B story, fun and games, a midpoint, bad guys close in, and an all is lost. Then you're going to have the Dark Night of the Soul, the break into three, the finale, and the final image. So if you think about all of those, it's basically the 3-act structure, but they're giving you more foundation. They're saying, okay, this is where the bad guys are closing in. And that means that you're going to put in exactly what's happening when you're getting to that big climax of your story. But it's more in depth to help guide you a little bit better. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with the hero's journey. Again, you're going to see them in their ordinary world. They're going to have a call to adventure. They're going to refuse the call, and then they're going to meet their mentor. And so you can see that it's basically the same structure in that very first section where you are just setting up your character for their everyday normal life. And then you're going to go into that middle part where you're crossing the first threshold. Then you're going to have a test, allies and enemies. You're going to get the approach to the inmost cave, then the ordeal. And then finally, you're going to get to the reward, which will break you off into your Act 3, which is the roadblock, the resurrection, and the return with the elixir. So again, this is basically the 3-act structure where it's just giving you more guidance and more foundation as far as telling you exactly what elements are supposed to go into this type of story. Because when you have a hero's journey, it's going to be things like Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, right? Where here he is in his ordinary world, and now he goes into this school where he's learning all about magic and where he comes from, and then he's going to get that call to adventure, right? Where he's going to go searching for the lightning bolt. And that's going to kick off his story. But this is really tailored to that type of story where you have a hero. The whole point of your character is to start out that ordinary guy or ordinary girl and become a hero at the end. The last one I want to talk about is the Take Off Your Pants outline. And I liked this one because it was the first book that I read when I started deciding that I was actually going to try and do this whole writing thing. Because again, I had never written a book. And so I had no idea how to do it. And I figured the best place to learn is in a book. So I looked up outlining your novel, and one of the first ones that came up was the Take Off Your Pants book. And I read it because it talked a lot about plotting versus pantsing. And it was the first time I had ever even heard those terms. So I realized that, okay, I am more a plotter, even though I sometimes will be a pantser, because somewhere in the middle of my novel, my character will make a decision that I wasn't accounting for, and it'll actually change the rest of the outline for me because of that one decision. So then I am pantsing, and I'm just kind of letting the story and the characters take me wherever they're going to take me until I come back to my outline. Or I can change my outline and decide that because of this decision, this is now what's going to happen later on in the novel. But outlining is flexible like that. Because you set down an outline, that doesn't mean you have to follow every single bullet point of your outline. You are building in flexibility by just putting in some broader headings and putting in some broader action of where your character is going so that you're leaving things open for your scenes to unfold in a more natural way, but you have that idea of where your story is going. So that's why I really enjoy the whole outlining process, because I just feel like it gives me some sort of structure to let me know, okay, I have covered this and this and this and this, and the next thing my character is supposed to do is find that thing or have that battle. And it lets you know that you're following the plot line the way you should be. And it means it's going to be less work if that's how your story runs. So I did also talk about last week the SMIAH conference that I attended, and there was a small workshop on the program Plotter, which I had never heard of before last weekend when I took this conference. So I watched this workshop because I thought, okay, it's about visual plotting, which I love. I love the idea of being able to lay something out and see what's going on. I had no idea that this was an actual computer program that you could be able to lay things out visually. And so the really cool thing about it is that you start your project and you have these timelines. So you have a main plot, and then you can choose a template, which they have a ton of different starter templates of all these types of outlines. Things like the 8-sequence method, the 7-point plot structure, the action-adventure plot, the 12-chapter mystery formula, the hero's journey, take off your pants, romancing the beat. So they have a really good variety of different outlines for the different genres that people are writing. And the cool thing about it is that you choose your outline, say you choose the take off your pants outline, and it sets it all up for you so that you can see, okay, this is the opening scene. And you put all of your characters in and where they're going to be in that opening scene, who's doing what. And then you continue down the line so that it all lays out in one big timeline with all of your characters and all of your beats or all of your chapters or all of your acts or all of your scenes, however you want to break it down. It lays it out for you so that you can see it in the long term and you can say, oh, well, this person is supposed to be a more integral part of the story, but I'm only seeing them in 2 chapters. So I need to figure out a way to work them in more deeply to the storyline. Or I need to find a way for them to support the main character more. Or my main character is not really doing the things that they need to be doing in this section. So I need to adjust what's going on and maybe add another chapter or add another scene. Because that's what's going to fill out your story and really make it more well-rounded. So Plotter does actually have a demo version. You can go in and check it out and see how it works. I think it's $25 for the program, and then you download it and you're good to go. And if you're a visual person like I am, that's the reason I decided to invest in it, because it really helps me outline even better than I was already doing, because I can see it as a whole timeline. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. So that is my more in-depth explanation of some of the outlining processes that I use and that I've seen. And again, you have to find the thing that works for you. You're going to typically take a little from each thing, each place, and make it your own. Because while I really do enjoy the Save the Cat beat sheet, I really do like the Take Off Your Pants outline, they don't necessarily work perfectly for me. So I take the parts that I really need or the parts that I want to use and plug it in and make my own outline, make something that works for me and for my characters and their arc, because I'm just looking for those main pieces so that I have a roadmap to follow and make sure that I'm giving you that satisfying ending that I search for when I'm reading a novel. If you enjoyed this episode or you want to hear more about anything that I talk about, you can reach out to me on my website, authorjaymephelps.com. You can also reach out to me on any of my social media platforms, on Facebook and Twitter at Jayme Phelps Author, on Instagram, Jayme.Phelps_author. And you can hear all of these podcast episodes anywhere you can hear a podcast, including but not limited to Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and Stitcher. I look forward to talking to you again soon on the next episode of Jayme's Journal.